zakah, hajj, everything is individual. Okay? A collective fard is a fard that's compulsory upon the whole community, not just you individually. So one of the communal fard is the knowledge of Tajweed, studying the knowledge of Tajweed, memorizing the Quran, for example, having a hafiz or a qari within yourselves. That's a communal obligation. If in this whole area, in this masjid, there's no hafiz, okay, permanent hafiz, then it's fard upon every single person here to bring forth your children and give them into a qari and say, look, pick any one of these children and make them into a qari. So there could never be a time when a masjid or an area is without a qari. That's what it means fard kifaya. Or like, for example, janazah, funeral prayer. If somebody passes away from amongst us, do we all have to attend? No. As long as some have attended and performed the ghusl and janazah and buried the person, they've removed the fard from everybody. But if nobody did that, then every individual would be a sinner. So learning its rules and principles is fard kifaya. Okay, it's fard upon the whole community to know the rules, meaning qalqala, what does it mean? Idhar, what does it mean? Ghunna, what does it mean? Mad, what does it mean? That is fard kifaya. You don't need to know every single name. Okay? But its application, but reciting the Quran with correct tajweed is fard per every single person individually. Okay? And the reason for that is because you are reciting the Quran. Okay? When you are reciting the Quran, you must recite it correctly. Now, if I'm reciting وَمِنَ النَّاسِ مَن يَقُولُ آمَنَّا بِاللَّهِ وَبِالْيَوْمِ الْآخِرِ. So why did I do وَمِنَ what's that called? I don't know. But I know I read it right. Yeah? I don't know the name of it. Makes sense? So I don't know the name, but I recited it correctly. That's enough for me. So, وَمِنَ
Transition from this kind to the other one. Got some students online. Shall I leave this one on, or should we ask them to go to that one? Because that one's a lot better. We'll be able to see a lot better.
But is it the same link or different link?
Different link. Good choice.
I think leave it. Probably. So وَمِنَ النَّاسِ nasi two haraka. Why did I make it long for? I don't know. I don't know why I made it long. But what I do know, that's the correct way. So reciting the Quran correctly yourself, okay, is fard upon you. But you don't need to know why you done that, why you done this, as long as you've done it correctly. Similar to like theory tests and driving. Okay, you studied the theory test, but you don't remember it. As long as you drive correctly, individually, you'll be okay. Yeah, you stop at the traffic lights. You don't know why you're stopping, but you're stopping. You come to a zebra crossing. You don't know why you're stopping, but you're stopping. But you're doing the right thing. Yeah, you're driving safe. When you're turning left, you are indicating. Yeah. Now, major mistakes. So, mistakes in, if somebody doesn't recite the Quran correctly, two types of mistakes can occur. Something that's major and something that's minor. They're both different. So, major mistakes in Arabic are called lahnul jali. Lahnul jali. Lah means mistake, jali means great. So, a great mistake. So, a great mistake would be if somebody changed a letter. So remember when I mentioned the makhraj of a letter can never ever change? So if you change the makhraj, for example, qaf is from here. This is the qaf spot. But you've moved to here. Qul. Qul. Back of the tongue. Qul. 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 Just by making it light, you've changed the makhraj. With the makhraj changing, the sifat have changed as well. Yeah? That is a major mistake, because qul means to recite, read. Qul means to eat. So qul huwa Allahu ahad. Say, read, say, speak. He, Allah, is one. Qul. And kul means eat. He, Allah, is one. So changing a letter changes the meaning. That is known as lahnul jali, major, great mistake. Another example would be, for example, a common mistake. خَلَقَ الْإِنسَانَ عَلَّمَهُ الْبَيَانَ. Surah Ar-Rahman. Ar-Rahman, Allama al-Quran. خَلَقَ الْإِنسَانَ. He created mankind. خَلَقَ. Many people will recite it fast, especially in Taraweeh. حَلَقَ الْإِنسَانَ. Halaqa without a dot. Ha means to shave. Yeah? So Allah shaved mankind. Allah shaved humankind. So it changes the meaning totally. So no longer is Allah creating, He is shaving. Make sense? So any mistake that you make concerning the makharij is known as lahnul jali, a major mistake. There are consequences to it. We'll come to that later on. So the first one is changing a letter, badil, one letter into another letter. And there's many examples, even in English. For example, Qari Sahib is sat on the chair, S-A-T. Change one letter, S into a F. Qari Sahib is fat on the chair. Just by changing one letter. It's not the same thing. And if I was inviting somebody, Hazrat, would you like to come and sit on the chair? Hazrat, would you like to come and fit on the chair? I'm sure they'd be embarrassed. Imagine the state secretary calling the honorable guest, Hazrat Allama Sahib, would you like to come and fit on the chair? And coincidentally, he's a big man. I'm sure he'll be offended. So, similarly in Quran also takes offense from you as well. When Quran is recited incorrectly, in another hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, then the Quran sends la'na upon you. So when you're thinking you're getting sawab for every letter, 10 blessings, you're not getting the 10 blessings. The Quran is cursing you. Yeah? So rather than getting good deeds, you're accumulating your bad deeds. Number 2, omitting or adding a letter, taking away a letter or adding a letter to the Quran. The example here, reading allama, which is dual. Yeah? They both taught, two people. Instead of reading allama, so allama, he taught, meaning who? Allah taught. Allah's one. Yeah? Allama al-Quran. Allama al-Quran. He taught the Quran. But allama, they too, meaning there's two gods out there who taught the Quran. So automatic shirk, automatic kufr. Yeah? Meanings changed. And vice versa. Reducing, reading qala, he said, instead of qala, they too said. There was two people. You're saying it was one person. So again, it would be a lie. Yeah? So if I said to you, yeah, I'm your witness, I really saw one person there. But really there was two people. How could I make that mistake from 2 to 1 or 1 to 2? Same thing with the Quran. Wherever it's dual, okay, it's dual. Wherever it's singular, you're not changing. Wherever there's a mad, you do the mad. Wherever you take the mad away, it'll change the meaning. Changing a vowel, okay, a vowel which is the fatha, dhamma, kasra, or zabar, zir, and pesh in Urdu or Punjabi or Farsi. Changing one of these will also change the meaning. For example, an'amtu, okay, an'amtu, I favored. So sirat al-lazina, an'amta, you favored. An'amtu, I favored. So did I favor? No, Allah favored. Sirat al-lazina an'amta alayhim. the path of those whom you have favored. By saying, Sirat al-Lazina an'amtu alayhim, the path upon who I did ihsan upon. Who did I do ihsan upon? So again, changing a vowel. Another example from the Quran, which I normally give. قَتَلَ دَاوُودُ جَالُوتَ قَتَلَ دَاوُودُ جَالُوتَ. Dawood killed Jalut. That's in the Quran. Now, I read قَتَلَ دَاوُودُ du with the pesh, Jaluta with the fatha. If I switch these two around, I read قَتَلَ دَاوُودَ Jalutu. Yeah? The meaning's changed. Meaning Dawood was killed by Jalut. Opposite meaning. It was Dawood alayhi salam who killed Jalut, not Jalut who killed Dawood. Just by changing one vowel. Okay? And vowels are very, very small. Yeah? Vowels are very, very small, and they play a key role in the Quran. There's actually a whole history behind how the vowels came into form, but inshallah we'll speak on that another time, another day inshallah. The last one, making a sakin letter, a silent letter, a mutaharrik letter, sakin. Again, it is a major mistake. For example, reading khalaqana, khalaqana, he created us. Na'udhu billah. Instead of reading khalaqna, we created. The difference between khalaqna and khalaqana. If you look at the difference, the qaf is supposed to be sakin. Yeah, khalaqna, we created. Meaning Allah saying, we created. But khalaqana, meaning He created us. Meaning Allah was created. Na'udhu billah. Ruling in regards to this, it is haram, prohibited, okay, to make major mistakes in Quran, even if it is unintentional. Even if you don't intend to make a mistake, it is still haram. Yeah? You recited the Quran wrong, but your intentions are good. It's the month of Ramadan, Shahrul Quran. I want to do the full Quran khatam. I want to recite the Quran 3 times. Imam Sahib in Taraweeh wants to recite really fast. Why? Because people out behind are very old and they got work in the morning. So he's reciting here at a super fast speed. Yeah? Running the 100 miles. And everybody wants to finish quickly. But he's making major mistakes. Okay? Even though it's unintentional, he doesn't deliberately, he's a Muslim. He has Iman, he's strong, he's passionate about Quran. He spent all his life memorizing the Quran. Okay? So we can't accuse his intentions. But because he's making the mistakes, okay, it is still haram. Okay, even if it's unintentional. Okay, now let's go on to minor mistakes and then we'll go to the conclusion. So minor mistakes are called lahm al-khafi. Lahm al-khafi are mistakes that are minor, that are small. These are mistakes in the temporary sifat. Temporary sifat. For example, the letter, should have been a full mouth letter. He didn't made it into an empty mouth letter on the letter ra. But generally, full mouth and empty mouth is a permanent sifa. Remember that, it's a permanent sifa. So a temporary sifa, for example, would be temporary sifa, for example, qalqala. Qalqala is temporary. When there's a fatha on the letter qaf, you don't do qalqala, you read qa, qamarun. Yeah? Wal qamari, sukoon comes onto it. Yeah? Then khalaq, fatha comes onto it, khalaqa. So anything in the temporary sifat, which is not permanent, okay? For example, izhar, I'm supposed to do izhar. Yeah? Tanhar, I read tanhar. Minor mistake. Minor mistake. Even though we would probably pick out Imam Sahib, you read tanhar, that's incorrect. So we'll pick that mistake out, but we'll leave the permanent sifat. Or like ikhfa, iqlab. Okay? The full mouth or empty mouth on the letter ra. So these are lahm al-khafi. If you make a lahm al-khafi mistake, okay, it is also incorrect. There's also it's sinful, okay, but it's not as the lahm al-jali. So the ruling now, scholars have differed over its ruling. Some say it's haram, prohibited. Okay, also meaning lahm al-khafi is also haram. Whilst others regard it as makruh, disliked. Meaning this Imam Sahib or this Qari Sahib's qira'ah is makruh, is disliked. Avoid listening to him. Avoid learning from him. So somebody who's making these mistakes shouldn't be teaching Quran. You should avoid a teacher that's making even lahn al-khafi. Okay? In short, those who are capable of reciting the Quran with Tajweed must do so. If you're capable, unless you've got a stutter, you can't pronounce certain letters. Otherwise, it is a grave sin, guna. However, if a person struggles in recitation, you find it difficult, even after exerting so much effort and trying, you're still making mistakes, okay? He will receive a double reward. So you will get a double reward after putting effort in. It doesn't mean if I don't try and I'll recite it wrong, I'm going to get double reward. I'd rather continue the way I am. No. You must put your effort in. You must come and learn. You must try. Then make mistakes and you're getting a double reward. So the previous ruling or the ruling that I'm going to give you now doesn't apply to you. Okay, the Prophet ﷺ mentions in the hadith, Al-Mahiru bil-Qur'ani ma'as-safarat al-kiram al-barara, that the expert in Quran is with the noble, righteous angels. Okay? There are two rewards for the person who recites the Quran and stutters in it. وَالَّذِي يَقْرَأُ الْقُرْآنِ, and for those who recite the Quran, وَيَتَتَعْتَعُ, meaning stutter. Okay? وَهُوَ عَلَيْهِ شَاقٌ لَهُ أَجْرًا. Okay? So he stutters and he can't, due to it being difficult. For them they are lahu ajran, a double reward. Okay? Mullah Ali Qari, rahimahumullah, Qadi Ayad in Ash-Shifa. Anybody read Ash-Shifa? Ash-Shifa, okay. He mentions in there that if somebody adds in the 4 conditions I've just given you of major mistakes, okay, if anybody does any one of them 4 deliberately, they mention that he is a kafir. He's out of the fold of Islam. Anybody who does it deliberately, meaning I know it says in the Quran خَلَقَ الْإِنسَانِ, but I choose to recite خَلَقَ الْإِنسَانِ. Kufr. So if you're intentionally reciting the Quran incorrectly, it's as though that I am changing the Quran. If I was to get a pen and paper and start distorting and changing the Quran, okay, without any doubt you'll call me a kafir. Every mufti in UK would put a fatwa of kufr on me. Why? Because I'm just changing the Quran, making my own Quran up. Okay? So what's the difference between me writing a new Quran or me speaking a new Quran? Yeah? Like for example, Alhamdu, hamd with the ha, the halwa ha. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. All praise be to Allah, the Lord of the universe. Alhamdu, with the 2 I ha, the soft one. Yeah? Alhamdu from Aqsa al-Halq, behind the Adam's apple. Alhamdu, that means all lanat, all dirt and filth be to Allah. Now think, how many times do we read Alhamdulillah, how many times do we do that? Yeah? So we're not actually praising Allah. So you're actually sending lanat upon Allah. Okay? And then when the Prophet ﷺ mentioned that, praying salah will stop you from doing evil and wrong, and you think, well, I pray namaz 5 times a day. I'm a pakka namazi. I'm here before the muazzin to call the azan, but still I do ghibat, but still I do chori, but still I lie. So there's nothing wrong with the Prophet ﷺ saying hadith. Yeah? There's nothing wrong with the Prophet ﷺ teaching that you pray salah, it will stop you from doing haram and evil. If you're still doing it, there's something wrong with your salah. Or you're doing dua to Allah and it's not working. There's something wrong with what you're doing. Yeah? So Tajweed is very, very important. And the reason why every single Tajweed book that you'll find, okay, every single Tajweed book you'll find, they don't actually talk about Tajweed, they talk about mistakes first. Okay? Similarly to what Sheikh Zain has done here. Mention the mistakes first, okay, the consequences of not having the subject first. Why? So that we can renew our intention, and the first thing that I mentioned about your goal, your objective, why you're studying the subject. Okay, it's important for you to know why we study Tajweed. What's the benefit of this Tajweed subject? Okay, that will motivate you to study the subject. Okay, and not knowing this, you think, yeah, Tajweed is just an additional subject, it's like, just a cream on top of a nice sweet dessert. If it's there, it's wow. If it's not there, we're not really missing anything. No, Tajweed is actually a very essential and a very important subject. So now we move on to the actual Tuhfat al-Atfal, the actual poem. Now, Tuhfat al-Atfal, I'll give you a brief comparison between Tuhfat al-Atfal and Muqaddimah ibn Jazari. Muqaddimah ibn Jazari will come later on. So after you complete this Tuhfa, then you do Muqaddimah ibn Jazari. So basic outline, what's the difference between the two poems? Okay. First of all, Tuhfat al-Atfal is the half the size of Muqaddimah ibn Jazari. Okay. It's about 60 odd couplets. Jazariya is just over 100 couplets, 106, 107 couplets. That's the first obvious difference. Sheikh Sulaiman al-Jamzuri, rahimahullah, they used to teach Muqaddimah ibn Jazari to their students. Whilst teaching their students the second poem, the one after this, Jazariya, their students used to struggle. They used to find it very, very hard to comprehend all the information that was in the higher poem. So Sheikh Sulaiman al-Jamzuri rahimahullah, they sat down and they wrote a new poem based upon the same scale, in the scale that I was talking about in the beginning, yeah, in the poetry format. So the same scale as the upper higher Muqaddimah ibn Jazari, the Muqaddimah, they wrote a basic poem and called it Tuhfat al-Atfal. Okay, so they wrote this for the students. So you start reading this first, then you could transit and go onto the more advanced poem. One of the differences, in the Tuhfat al-Atfal, there's no makharij. There's no makharij. So normally you would expect in a Tajweed book to talk about makharij. But Tuhfat al-Atfal, they didn't mention it. Why? Because it's mentioned in Muqaddimah ibn Jazari. They didn't want to repeat it again. The only makharij they mention here are 6 letters. Okay? The 6 letters that they mention in Tuhfat al-Atfal are the huruf al-halqiyya, the letters of the throat. And the reason why they mention the letters of the throat, because they are forced to do so. Why? Because we need to know the 6 letters so we know when to do izhar on the Nun Sakina. Hence why they mention the 6 letters of the halq. Other than that, there's no other makharij mentioned in this. Okay. Sifat lazima, the permanent characteristics that I talked about. Okay. And the temporary characteristics I talked about. The temporary one you will find in here. The permanent characteristics you won't find in this. They haven't mentioned them in this. Again, why? Because you find them in the next book up, Muqaddimah ibn al-Jazari. Okay, so whatever Tuhfat al-Atfal covers is not covered in the book above. So it's actually perfect book 1, book 2, poem 1, poem 2. Even in Jamia al-Azhar, it's taught in that sequence as well. So they'll teach you Tuhfat al-Atfal first, then they'll teach you Muqaddimah bil-Jazari. Then after that, they'll teach you Salsabil and Tuhfat al-Munudiyya, and there's many other mutun texts after. But the original two are Tuhfat al-Atfal and Muqaddimah bil-Jazari. So Muqaddimah means the opening. Muqaddimah. On page number 19 we're looking at. Okay? Page number 19, top left hand corner, it says Muqaddimah. So Muqaddimah means the opening chapter, the entrance, what's been brought forward. Okay? The mention يقول راجي رحمة الغفور دوما سليمان هو الجمزوري. يقول راجي says the seeker. Okay? Says the seeker. Seeker of what? رحمة الغفور, the mercy of the most forgiving, or the ever forgiver. So Sulaiman al-Jamzuri rahimahullah is asking for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's forgiveness. He's saying that I am he who asks for his Lord's forgiveness all the time. Dawman, da'iman in Arabic, da'iman. Dawman meaning always. Sulaiman, which is his name, Huwal Jamzuri, who's from the place called Jamzur, which I mentioned earlier on. Jamzur was a small village that can be found in the modern day city called Tanta. Alhamdulillahi musalliyan ala, all praise be to Allah. Musalliyan ala, whilst sending salutations upon Muhammadin sallallahu alayhi wasallam, wa alihi, and upon his family, wa man tala, and everybody that follows, and everybody that comes after. Now, here there could be two meanings. One, after the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his family, and then whoever came after them, yeah, till today. It could also mean wa man tala, and whoever literally followed them, meaning we follow the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we follow the Ahlul Bayt. Okay, so it could be both meanings. وبعد هذا النظم للمريد, and thereafter, and thereafter, هذا النظم, this poem, للمريد, it is for my students. Okay, for the students. Now murid literally has a few meanings. One is like Peer Murid. Okay, so murid literally means like a leech. Yeah, you know, something like a leech, it sticks onto you. You try to get rid of it and you just can't get rid of it. Yeah, that's a murid. It's a student. A student attaches itself to the knowledge, to the teacher, and doesn't want to leave the teacher. Yeah, always wants to be with the teacher. Wherever the teacher goes, sat there all the time. I got one more question, always wanting to learn. Hence why they use the word murid. They could have used many other words. Okay. في النون والتنوين والمدود. In the noon sakina, tanween, and madud. So they mentioned three things. That this poem, I have written this poem for students. And what is the poem about? في النون, in noon sakina, tanween, the two fatha, two dhamma, two kasras, and last one, wal madud, and the stretching of the mad. But there's more than that in the poem. They only mention three things just to make the bayt, the poem rhyme. في النون والتنوين والمدود سميته بتحفة الأطفال. So just to make it rhyme. So سميته, and I have named it تحفة الأطفال, the gift for the children. عن شيخنا, okay, عن شيخنا, I have from our teacher. So عن شيخنا, me, he was the name. Me, he was the name of the teacher. Okay, ذي الكمال, meaning صاحب الكمال. Okay, bearer of perfection. So they described their teacher as صاحب الكمال, meaning he was perfect in Tajweed. He was amazing in knowledge. He was a great teacher. Yeah, he was my role model. That was my teacher. Then they mention, أرجو به أن ينفع الطلاب. I intend with this to benefit the طلاب, the students. Now they're telling you the benefit that they are presuming or thinking for you whilst writing this poem. They mention, أرجو به, I intend with it أن ينفع الطلاب, to benefit the students with what? والأجر والقبول والثواب, with أجر, قبول and ثواب. Okay? Recompense, acceptance and reward. So that's your opening introduction. So here I've got two questions. In verse number 3, I touched upon it slightly. وَبَعْدُ هَذَا النَّظْمُ لِلْمُرِيدِ, the third line. The word here is murid. Okay? The line just below that, they mention سَمَّيْتُهُ بِتُحْفَةِ الْأَطْفَالِ. I've named this the gift for children. The verse above they mentioned that this poem is for murids. Next line is saying that the name of this poem is for the children, gift for the children. In the last line, arju, underneath that, arju bihi an yanfa'a tullaba, I intend to benefit the students. So what's the difference between these three words? If you look here, وبعد هذا النظم للمريد, the word murid. Next line, atfal. Next line, tullab. They've chose three different words in three verses, one above the other. Why? Anybody knows the difference between a murid, a tifl or atfal, and a talib? So murid, I hinted. So murid, you like peer murid. So the peer sahib can be right, peer sahib can be wrong. The murid is blind, he is it and nobody else. He follows blindly. He don't care. Just like I'm a murid of Aston Villa football. I support them. They win or lose Villa. Or I support Manchester United. Or I support this person. Or I support this team. So when you become a fanatic, okay, when you become a fanatic in a particular team, subject, or anything, so the talking murid meaning a fanatic in that particular field. Yeah? سميته بتحفة الأطفال, and I have named this poem a gift for the children, okay, which I mentioned earlier on, that a child, not literally a child, 9 years old, 5 years old children, this is for Tuhfat al-Atfal, gift for the child in the field of this subject, in the field of this knowledge, okay, in the subject of Tajweed, who's a beginner. So you could be 50 years old, you could be 100 years old, and still be a child in this subject, okay. And the last one, أرجو به أن ينفع الطلاب, okay. I intend with this to benefit who? The talib. Now what is a talib? You can't become a talib without being a murid and a tifl. You can't become a talib. Because to be a murid, you have to become a fanatic. You have to be dedicated. You have to be chasing that golden dream, that golden teacher, that golden subject, that golden knowledge. You have to become a fanatic to be a murid. So that characteristic you must have within you to be a good student. The second thing is being a child. You know, at school, when you tell a child, you know, anything, the child will never question. He will never question. He will just think, you know, my teacher's older, he's right or she's right, and he will just follow. Like you told your child, we're Muslims. Has he ever questioned you? A little child? No. You're living like a Muslim, he starts living like a Muslim. You speak Punjabi at home, your son, your daughter, as they're growing up, they start speaking Punjabi as well. They've never questioned you, Baba, Mama, why do we speak Punjabi? My friend over there, he speaks Chinese at home, why can't we speak Chinese? They don't really question. So whatever they get around the surrounding, they will take it. Yeah? So Sheikh Sulaiman al-Jamzuri rahimahullah, by mentioning three different names, Murid, Atfal, and then Talib, okay, Tullaba, they've basically showed us the type of student of knowledge that we should become. Okay? Number one, we should be a fanatic in that subject, dedicated in that subject. Number two, we should act like a child, not like an imam. I know everything. Yeah? Become humble, like a child. Yeah? Ready to absorb anything the teacher's going to give you and absorb it like a sponge. Once you've got these two characteristics, only then you'll become a talib. If not, you can't become a true talib. You can sit in front of a teacher and think, my beard's grey. He doesn't have a beard. He's bacha. Why should I listen to him? He might be wrong. So if you have that attitude, you're never going to learn. Okay? And so you have to be dedicated. The next question I've got, that was the first question. Second question, Shaykh Sulaiman al-Jamzuri mentioned, wal-ajra wal-qabula wal-thawaba. In the last line, the last three words, they mentioned, wal-ajra wal-qabula wal-thawaba. So qabul we know, acceptance. But what's the difference between ajr and thawab? Anybody? Ajr and thawab. What's the difference between? Close? Close? Ajr is what you gain and thawab is what you get. Yeah. So ajr is what you gain. Yes. For example, I woke up today morning, I walked to the shop, I paid, I bought milk, I came back home, and I've got milk at home now for my cereals. So I had to do something to get that. If I didn't walk to the shop, I wouldn't get the milk. That's ajr. Okay? So you give, for example, sadaqah of £10, you will gain the reward of £10 in sadaqah. Allah will give you exactly what you've given. You give more, He'll give you more. You give less, He'll give you less. Yeah? You read one line of the Quran, okay, and that line, for example, has 30 letters. 30 times 10, 300. 300 reward you're going to get. So whatever you've done, you've been rewarded. That's ajr. What's thawab? Thawab is what you are given. It's nothing to do with you no more. Nothing to do with you no more. For example, in Ajar, I booked my ticket. I'm going to be going Umrah on the 26th of this month. So it's cost me about £400. I have to catch a flight to Cairo, then fly to Jeddah, then transport from Jeddah to Makkah, wear the ihram, scared one hair comes out your body, you have to give them. Yeah, in the heat, fasting, everyone pushing, shoving, go around the Kaaba 7 times. After done that, then go on to the Safa Marwa, then have to run up and down. And the little tiles will hurt your feet. Finish all that, then you gotta shave your head off. It's a lot of hard work. And after that, you've completed one Umrah. So I've done work for one Umrah, and I will get one Umrah. But Sawab is what? You go home today, you go and see your mum, your father, you look at them, you smile, they smile back at you, you get one Sawab of one Hajj. I've spent money, I'm going to be going to do Umrah at the end of this month. Yeah? All of that effort, sweat, yeah? At the end to get one selfie in front of the Kaaba. All of that, it's going to cost over £1,000. But you have gone home, sat at home, smiled at your mum, smiled at your father, and Allah's given you a thawab of a Hajj. Okay? So what have you done for that Hajj? Nothing. Something very small. But the Hajj wasn't given to you based upon your actions. Yeah? Of the quantity of action. That was given upon the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's the difference between Ajr and Thawab. So when you recite Quran, you will be gaining Ajar, okay, that's one thing. Sawab, Allah will give you as much as He wishes. You don't know. So the Prophet ﷺ, in the narration, the hadith that we discussed, that for you there's 10 reward. The Prophet ﷺ is talking about Ajar. He's talking about the Ajar. He's not talking about Sawab. If you look at the hadith, if you go back to page number 12. If you look at page number 12, من قرأ حرفا من كتاب الله فله به حسنة والحسنة بعشر أمثالها. Okay, that's something that you know now. If I read one letter, I will get 10. If I read 10 letters, I will get 100. You already know that. You're not going to change that now. Okay? Thawab is something that's beyond. You could recite Surah Fatiha, like Surah Ikhlas 3 times. Recite Surah Ikhlas 3 times, you get the reward of the Quran. Do you understand? That's Allah's mercy. It's nothing that you haven't physically read the whole Quran. You haven't put the effort in and recited the whole Quran. It takes longer. It'll take you at least 30 to 35 hours. At least to do one full khatm al-Quran. Reciting at a correct pace. At least 35 hours. So Shaykh Sulaiman al-Jamduri rahimahullah, in the last verse, they've mentioned you 3 different things here. So Ajr, you put the effort in, okay, and then you will get rewarded for it. Then the next thing is Qabool, that Allah accepts it, and then you get what? Thawab. And in that sequence they've written it. Shaykh Sulaiman al-Jamduri rahimahullah. Page number 20. للنون إن تسكن وللتنوين أربع أحكام فخذ تبييني. Now Shaykh Sulaiman al-Jamduri rahimahullah, they had this character of when they were with elders, they were like a very mature teacher. When they were with children, they were like a child. Okay? They were very friendly, charactered, natured person. And from the language that they've chosen in this poem, you can see that. And I normally, when I'm teaching this Tuhfa, I normally mention this is the Jamzuri kick. Yeah? So Shaykh Sulaiman Jamzuri regularly does that throughout the whole poem whilst they writing and teaching. And you notice that, like here, they mentioned لِلنُّونِ إِن تَسْكُنْ, and when the noon in taskun becomes silent, meaning there's no fatha, dhamma, kasra on the noon, walid tanwini, and the letter the tanween, fatha, dhamma, kasra, the 2 of them, fathatain, dhammatain, kasratain, arba'u ahkamin, there will be 4 rules. Okay? And then they mention fakhuz, and kino, and take. Fakhuz tabiyini, and take my explanation. Okay? So meaning, whenever there's a noon sakina or a tanween, there will always be 4 rules. Okay? 4 rules will occur. They mention, فَالْأَوَّلُ الْإِظْهَارُ. The first one is al-izhar qabla ahrufi, before the letters. So the first rule we're talking about here is izhar qabla ahrufi lil-halqi. Okay? Before the letters of halq, of your throat. Sittun are 6 letters. Ruttibat fal ta'rifi, that have been arranged so that you shall know. Another Jamdur kick. Okay? Fal ta'rifi, so that you understand. Okay? So when they say arranged in what? So look at the letters now. Line number 3. همز فهاء ثم عين حاء مهملتان ثم غين خاء. So when they mention rutibat, it's been arranged in a sequence, meaning from aqsa al-halq to wast al-halq, from wast al-halq to adna al-halq. So here it's very important to understand the letters of halq. So that's your tongue. That's your palate, roughly where your tonsils are. That's your teeth. So I'm not going to go through all the makharij. Just want to show you this. I've done it. I've done it. That's my artwork. That's your opening of your mouth. Okay, so if I'm looking this way, that's the opening of the mouth. Down. That's your neck. That's the Adam's apple that sticks out. Okay, the cartilage that you have here. And that's your neck, and then chest and body. This blue line here in the middle represents your two different passageways. One is your breathing, so you're breathing from the front. Okay, so you're breathing air passageways on the front, and then eating is on your back. Okay, and that's where it differs from. So where you breathe and you swallow, that's your point. And I think I've done my tonsils a bit higher. And that's where your tonsils are, okay, at the back of your mouth. So, does anybody here know where your three makharij are? Makharij. So you got 6 letters. If you look at the verse number again, the third line, Hamzun Faha'un, there's your 2 letters, Hamza and Ha, Ainun Ha'u, Ain and Ha. Muhmalatan means dotless, without any dots. Yeah? Meaning the Ha without a dot, with the Ain without a dot. Because when you add the 2 dots, they become what? Thumma ghainul kha'u. Become ghainul kha'. These are your 6 letters that are known as huruf al-halqiyya. Okay? The incredible halq letters. So where do you think these letters fit here? So I put up 7 markers now. At what number? So Hamza and Ha. Where do you think the next 2? Ain and Ha. Huh? Ain and Ha number 2. And Ghain and Kha. 3. So where would that be? Number 6 or 7? 5? Okay, so see Ghain and Kha here. Somebody said at the top here. Ghain and Kha here as well. Okay. Anybody else got a different opinion?
Number 6.
6 is what? Ain. So number 6 is well, okay. Sisters, if you don't want to shout out, but in your mind have a boy can speak out. What are your numbers? Give me 3 numbers. 3 winning numbers.
6, and then the one above the Adam's apple.
So one above the Adam's apple, number 4. So 4 is going to be Ain and Ha. Yeah? So Ain and Ha here. Where would you put your Hamza and Ha? At what number?
3.
Number? 3. Good, interesting. Anybody else got a different opinion? Hamza and Ha at number 6. At 6. Hamza and Ha under the throat. Give me a number. So that's your bottom of your neck. 1. Hamza and Ha, okay. And Ain and Ha. Number 3. Okay. Ain and Ha, you think it's here? Ghain and Ha, right at the top. Okay, that's already there. Anybody else got a different opinion to that? So sisters who don't want to shout out, make sure you write a number down on your book or remember what you think, where you would classify this as. I could tell you, out of all of these, the Hamza and Ha, this Hamza and Ha is correct. This Hamza and Ha is correct. And nobody got Ain and Ha right. Ain and Ha number? That's correct. Ain and Ha is number 5. Okay. And Ghain and Kha, is it number 6 or number 7? Number 6. MashaAllah. Okay. Let me explain to you now. There's something called one doesn't work. At that point there, behind the Adam's apple, is something that looks like something like that. Behind your Adam's apple is something called a larynx. In Arabic it's called hanjar. Al-hanjara. English larynx. Okay. In my language it's called a voice box. Okay. So your voice box in English is called larynx, in Arabic it's called hanjara. Where do you find it? Behind your Adam's apple. Okay. So where does sound come from? Voice box. Okay. So is it possible for you to create a sound from anywhere below here? Impossible. Impossible to make any sound from below that point. So your bottom point, when you say Aqsal Halq, you remember Aqsal Halq is the incredible Halq, meaning your throat, not your neck. Your neck starts from here, but your throat don't start from here. This is neck, gardan. The whole thing is your neck. It starts from way below. Yeah? But your voice box is behind your Adam's apple. So the bone that sticks out. Now what is an Adam's apple? Adam's apple is a cartilage, okay, a very soft bone, like your ear bone or your nose bone. It's a cartilage. What the Adam's apple does, it actually protects. It protects your voice box. Yeah? And if you never had an Adam's apple, you look right and you strain your voice box. You damage it. You look left, you'll damage your voice box. That's how fragile. Because this is your voice box. That's a piece of meat, gosht, another piece of gosht, and it's got like a little tiny little gap in between. And that's where the air passes through and it comes out through here. And if you go onto YouTube, just type in larynx or voice box, yeah, and you'll see loads of anatomy videos, and you'll see it's literally paper thin. Your voice box is probably thin as this paper. And as air passes, it generates a sound. The sound is born. So air, through the voice box, generates a sound directed towards a particular makhraj, wherever it's going to be, generates a letter. So it's impossible to read any letter below your larynx, below your Adam's apple. So a lot of subcontinent India, Indo-Pakistan ulama, Qurra say, yeah, you should read the letter Ha from your chest. Yeah? Ha comes from your chest. It is impossible for Ha to come from your chest. Because if your Ha can come from your chest, then based upon that logic of yours, I would argue my letter Qaf is read from my right foot, Ba from my left foot, Jim is my right hand. Say whatever I want to say. Yeah? Because the voice box is here, behind your Adam's apple. Below that point can't be any sound. So whoever mentions that read from your chest, letter Ha, incorrect. Yes, your chest vibrates. Yeah, because to read the letter Ha, you must open your voice box drastically to allow the air to pass, like وَالشَّمْسِ وَضُحَاهَا ha. Now I don't read وَالشَّمْسِ وَضُحَاهَا ha. Yeah? So it has to come, the letter Ha has to be heard. So وَالشَّمْسِ وَضُحَاهَا وَالْقَمَرِ إِذَا تَلَاهَا وَالنَّهَارِ إِذَا جَلَّاهَا ha, ha, not ha, just air coming out. Yeah? So the correct one was Hamza and Ha. Okay, the next thing now, Ain and Ha. If you notice in the Ain and Ha, there's something about Ain which is very, very obvious. Ain, Ain, there's something happening. You put in the effort, there's something actually happens physically. Yeah? You could feel something physically moving in your voice. There's something happening. Same with the Ha, Ha, Ha. There's something physically happening in the throat. So what's that happening? You're squeezing something. Yeah? You're squeezing a muscle, yeah? But it's so hard to squeeze a muscle in your throat that you can't even see. So which muscle are we actually squeezing? So where does the letter Ain and Ha come from? So the correct answer was the number 5 that nobody got. Okay? So number 5, so I'll write the correct ones in. So Hamza and Ha are here at number 3. And here is your Ain and Ha. So the red ones are the correct ones. So Ain and Ha come from here. Remember when I mentioned the food passageway and the air passageway? Now, your air passageway is on the front of your neck, the front part of your chest. So when you're breathing, your chest moves up and down. If I was to pass out here and one of you unfortunate people might have to come and give me a mouth to mouth or resuscitate me, bring me back to life. What are you going to do? You're going to press my chest. Yeah? Chest. Where do you find it? My breathing. My breathing's on the front. So you're going to go straight to the chest. Okay, now imagine you got a baby. You're feeding the baby some milk. What do you do after you fed the baby milk? You pat, rub the back. Why not the chest? Why not the belly? Yeah? Because when you're eating or drinking, your food goes down the back of the neck into your stomach. When you're breathing, okay, your windpipe is on the front of your neck. So hence why when someone strangles you, okay, when you're getting strangled, they're closing your air pipes, your windpipe, not your food pipe. Yeah? So even as a grown man, when you choke on food, the person sat next to you, your best mate, what did you do? Slap you in your back. Yeah? They won't slap you on the front, on the chest, on the back. So that's the first thing you need to understand. So you're breathing on the front and you're eating from the back. Okay. How does your body differentiate between breathing and eating? So when you take something into your mouth, how does your brain tell your body, oh, this is food, it's not air, or this is air, this is not food? Okay? There's a mechanism in your throat, above your upper voice box, below your tonsils, just there, it's called an epiglottis. Yeah? Epiglottis, another key word to remember, epiglottis. From this epiglottis comes your two letters, Ain and Ha. Okay, now epiglottis is a small piece of meat, okay, which always stays closed. It's always closed, okay. What does it close? It closes the food passageway. So by default, you're breathing. Yeah? So you don't have to make an effort to breathe. There's no effort. You can be sleeping and breathing, no problem. You'd never think, am I still breathing? Am I alive? Am I breathing? No. You don't need to think about it, because that's your natural position. Your epiglottis is always closed. It closes the food. But when you eat now, you have to put a lot of effort into it. Yeah? Other than chewing the food, but about 50, 60 times, so much minute, just take one bite. And then when you swallow, what do? See that? When you're swallowing, what are you doing? The epiglottis, it flips, it opens, so you open the food passageway and it closes the air passageway. Yeah? The shift between the two, so it opens the food and closes the air passageway. Why does it close the air passageway? So you don't choke. If the food goes down your air passageway, what happens? You end up flooding. If you drank water and it went into your lungs, you'll drown. That's how you drown in the ocean. When you're trying to survive, trying to swim, you're trying to breathe, and you're under the sea level, you take a breath and you're breathing water. Go straight into your lungs. Lungs are flooded, you're dead. You can't breathe. Yeah? So that's how you drown, when water goes into your lungs. So the key thing is here, epiglottis, that differentiates between your food and your air passageway. So that's your second point. The first one, your hanjara or larynx, your voice box, which is behind your Adam's apple. The two letters, Hamza and Ha. Next one, epiglottis, Ain. That squeeze is the epiglottis moving. Ain. And you're closing the airway. Ain. Ain. Ha. Ha. You're actually closing the air passageway. And the air then whistles past. It's like a balloon. You know when you blow up a balloon, you let go, it goes. Yeah? But same balloon, when you grab the neck and you just pull it tight, squeeze it, what happens? Yeah? Or it makes a bit more sharper sound that I can't do. So that's what balloon does. Similar with your epiglottis. When you're squeezing the air passageway, it makes that whistle sound. E, ha, ha, ha. And ayn, iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Ayn is the epiglottis. The last one is from here, ghain and kha, which is the last part of your throat. Your throat finishes here and your mouth starts here. That's your border, where your Adam's apple is. So where your throat finishes, because the tongue becomes the throat, the same piece of meat. So the tongue doesn't stop here, it continues and it becomes the wall of your neck internally, okay, your breathing part. So this part here, where your Adam's, where your tonsils are, it breaks up. So your ghain and kha from the last part of the throat, and just over the border, you got the letter qaf, and then the mouth starts after that. So Shaykh Sulaiman al-Jamzuri only mentioned these 6 letters. The makhraj. Okay? Only 6 letters for to worry about. They mention فَالْأَوَّلُ الْإِظْهَارُ قَبْلَ أَحْرُفِ لِلْحَلْقِ. They come from the halq. So remember, halq does not mean neck. Halq, a throat, is not the same as a neck. A neck is not a throat. Okay? So if you've studied Tajweed all your life and you don't know the difference between halq and throat, okay, then you've struggled. Because halq is inside your throat. Sorry, halq is inside your neck. So neck is the whole thing, and halq is only small inside. Now I've done a massive diagram. My chin is not that big, and nor is my neck that long. Yeah, so I just magnified it for you. In reality, the space between Hamza and Ha, imagine this is Hamza and Ha. Yeah? Ayn and Ha would be here, and Ghain and Kha would be there. That's that's your throat. No bigger than that. Absolutely smooth. That's your halq. This is your neck. Inshallah. As I mentioned it in sequence, Hamzun Faha'un, Thumma Aynun Ha'u, Muhmalatan, referring towards the Ayn and Ha, that they are dotless. Then Thumma Ghainun Kha'u. Okay? And they are your letters of throat. And we've come to an end. It's gone past 1 o'clock. So inshallah we'll continue tomorrow. Okay? So the key things that I want everyone to remember. Number 1, makhraj, can he ever change? No. Can permanent sifat ever change? No. Can temporary sifat change? Yes. In regards to your first 3 makhraj that Shaykh Sulaiman al-Jamzuri taught us, the Hamza and Ha, where do they come from? Voice box. Where is the voice box? Behind the Adam's apple. Simple. You could put a finger on it now. When I was young, 9, 10 years old, I was taught by my Ustadji, it's from here. Where my shoulder blade, chest blades are, just stay in the middle. That's where your Hamza and Ha come from. Your Ha actually. And then Hamza came above that. Okay? So everybody points there, or they point towards the chest. Okay? So Adam's apple, behind there is your voice box. That's where Hamza and Ha. So try practicing that. Easiest way to practice is Hamza, Fatha, Hamza. Or the 2-eyed Ha. Don't go So here, yeah. فألهمها همها. No. فألهمها همها. Try to get it to your chest here. فألهمها فجورها. The next one are عين and Ha. إياك نعبد. Ha. Alhamdu. Hamdu. Make sure there's a squeeze in that throat. If you don't have a squeeze in your hamd, you are saying fire, lanat, disgrace between Allah and A'udhu Billah. If you're reading Alhamdu, Alhamdu, and your epiglottis hasn't moved, yeah, you're definitely reading it wrong then. The epiglottis must move, the air passageway must be slightly closed. Alhamdu. Lillah. Then Ghain and Kha are from the top. Gha. So Ghain does not come from the mouth. A lot of people in Punjabi we say, for example, or in Urdu, wo gharib the. So when you say gharib, we use it from the middle of the tongue. Gharib. Yeah? But in Arabic, a ghain comes from your top of your throat. So it's gha. Yeah? So غير المغضوب عليهم غير and غين is a full mouth letter. غير empty mouth. غين full غير المغضوب عليهم. Yeah? Not غير المغضوب. I'm reading from my mouth now. You know, a bit of saliva in the middle of the tongue. غير. Yeah? So remember these letters from the throat. There's key things you have to remember. Epiglottis for the Ain and Ha. Your voice box for the Hamza and Ha. Nothing below that. Ghain, make sure it's from your throat, not from your mouth. Not غير المغضوب. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم. Inshallah, tomorrow I'll see you at 11 o'clock. I'll carry on.